Showtime. All right. Thanks everybody for giving me the suggestions on my Facebook page. There was a lot of good ones that I just didn't have time to kind of dig through and find the right references for the painting. I like the Kurt Russell suggestion a lot. I might look into that a little bit further. Richard Pryor was another good one I just thought of. I want to take more time. I was kind of rushed this morning getting everything together. So I decided to choose Bill Murray because I never thought I would paint Bill Murray for whatever reason. Like he doesn't seem like somebody that I would think I gotta make a painting of him. And I don't have nothing against him, but kind of like the idea of doing something I don't think I would have done. So we're gonna do that. Mike Ness is another one I'm looking at too. Musicians are kind of tricky. I prefer to paint musicians like in a full body position, I think. It just allows you to get more into it. Like some musicians have really great faces, and I think he does too. Plus, I need to listen to more of the music. I'm familiar with some of the more popular songs. I just haven't really followed him as a musician personally to see what it's all about. So I like to kind of get into the music and stuff when I do a painting of somebody, like a musician, or like I'm picking these people that are being suggested for whatever reason. All right. So I'm just getting rid of this white canvas. I'm doing something a little bit different this time. You may not be able to see it because of the way of the exposure of the camera, but I'm using a wax palette on this board, which I normally do, but I'm using one that's gray instead of white. Some of that reason is mainly for the same reason that I'm wiping out this on my canvas. I'm getting rid of the white is to just have a color there. Looks like my camera's maybe putting a cast shadow on this, so I'm going to try to move something here without screwing everything up. So bear with me. I do that. That didn't change the palette cam too much. Double check. All right. Just making a quick adjustment on that here. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Still not quite right. I'm still in the middle of adjusting a lot of my studio lighting setups and camera things. So each week, this is kind of a little bit experiment of the new setups that I'm trying. We're going to go ahead and plow through this. It's still kind of casting a shadow onto my canvas from my lights. All right. Bill Murray. This is from What About Bob, which is one of my favorite Bill Murray movies. I thought about doing it from like Groundhog's Day, and I was like, well, that's kind of predictable, so let's not do that. What About Bob? He always kind of looks like he just got caught beaten off or something. I don't know what's going on with Bill Murray, but I like his face. It's going to be kind of fun. So he has some features, like his hairline is just easy to jump onto a caricature of him. So I'm kind of just making a goofy representation of the outside of his hairline down to his neck. He's going to have these droopy shoulders. That's how we start. So I'm still working on some of the pieces from the other streams. I need to get those completed. They're starting to pile up on me over here. I did finish the Sam Elliott portrait, which turned out pretty good. It was weird as I worked on that, and no matter what I did, it felt like it didn't quite look right. And it finally got to the point where I thought it's good enough and I got to move on. And I came back to it a little bit later. I'm like, oh, it looks about right. And then the true test is when I post them online, then I see people's reaction to it. Like either you get it or you don't. And it seemed like it was done, like everybody seemed to recognize who it was right off. It's really hard kind of capturing some of these facial expressions of these people from these films because they're constantly moving, they're constantly changing their expressions, their little micro expressions, and it can be hard to like pick out like what's the one that feels feels correct. And sometimes it's easier to actually work from a live model because generally they're sitting there posing, but their expressions don't change as much necessarily. Although I like to paint and draw people, or especially draw people when they're not paying attention. Like if I have a sketchbook at a restaurant or something, and I'll draw people's pictures as they're sitting there doing stuff, or standing in line at at a restaurant or something. And this looks like Jason from. All right. So, and the idea of drawing people that are standing or moving around, a good way to do it is drawing people that are standing in line, like at a bar or at a, like I said, a restaurant, that are waiting in line to pay for their bill or something, because they're standing relatively still, but they're shifting their weight, moving around a little bit, so you can start to get the habit of drawing people that are moving around. And I think that's really a helpful way of learning how to draw people to begin with. Drawing people that aren't posing for a painting or posing for a drawing. It's kind of what I aim for in a lot of the paintings, is they don't look like they're posing for something. They look like they're doing something or in the middle of something. Because generally that's what people are. They're just in one moment to the next. And so the key is like how do you capture that little moment in time that's not a copy of it. So when I'm drawing people from life, it's really quick. I draw with Sharpies and pens, so that I started doing that to get away from the habit of erasing drawings and trying to fix them. You really have to just move on to the next one. There's no reason to sit around and keep erasing something. It's best to move on to the next one when it comes to drawing, like um, learning to draw quickly. There's no reason to do it quickly either. It's more of just to do it efficiently. Like I don't necessarily draw or paint quick. I just don't spend I don't dilly dally on things, mainly because I don't know. I like immediate results, I guess, as much as I can. I think I'm kind of just getting too carried away in some of the likenesses things, and a lot of that comes later. I just want to really sort of get this caricature version down of him. He's got like a short, squatty face. He's got a big ears, hair coming out here, scribbling down here. Kind of like a clown without makeup is what he looks like. I hope Bill Murray doesn't see this and want to fight me or something. I always loved this movie too. I've seen it quite a few times. I haven't seen it lately though. And I quickly skimmed through it again to look for the sort of scenes I was thinking about doing for this Bill Murray portrait. Um, But I always liked this movie. This was always a funny one to me. And you know, now that it came out a long time ago, now that I'm a little older, I have probably a little more sympathy, understanding for Bill Murray's character. You know, the guy's it's funny, but he's struggling for something that would, you know, like people struggle from real things. And you know, this movie kind of makes light of his struggle because he's kind of a weird, goofy guy. And but you know, people suffer from really serious stuff, and I don't know. I'm going with that. So leave it there. Just gonna go with this idea that he's a clown without makeup. Not all clowns wear makeup, I guess. And I'm just having fun here, just dialing in this. I think it's kind of got the right feel to it. I feel like things are kind of in the right place, sort of. Kind of not sure exactly how I want to do his expression. Like, I like this one where he's kind of looks like he's caught in, like a deer caught in headlights sort of look. But I wanted to I wanted to definitely, you know, read as Bill Murray, but I'm looking for something that's not like I've seen him. Like there's I don't know what the typical Bill Murray photos are. Classic Bill. He's been in a lot of movies. All right, I think I'm going to start laying in some color here. I forgot to go over what my palette is. I'm using pretty much the same palette I've been using for the last few weeks. Indigo Blue, Burnt Umber, Brought Umber, Aliziran Crimson, Burnt Sienna, Cadmium Red LIght, Yellow Ochre, Naples Yellow. Uh, these are neutral grays. This might look white on the screen because of the exposure of the camera, but it's just a really light gray, and it's made by Gamblin. These neutral grays are Portland Gray Light, Medium, and Dark. And then I have a Paynes Gray. And I use these grays to modify the color without tinting it too much. So if I want something that is, you know, really saturated like this red, but I want to gray it down without making it lighter or darker, I'll do that with a gray that is close to the same value as that is. And by value, I mean how light or dark it is on a from white to black. The other way you can do that is by mixing in complementary colors, which will naturally gray the color down. A good one for that is cobalt blue, which is slightly darker. So when you mix those blues in with this, it'll make that grayer, but it'll also make it darker. So then you'll have to mix a white. I find that it's just simpler to mix these neutral tones together, because that way, if you're trying to match the color later on, it's easier to remember that you've mixed a neutral one sort of gray color to neutralize it, rather than mix a mixture of blue and white or some other color to triangulate that color. So using these neutral tones, these are more temperature neutral, and then I have earth tones, which I use for neutralizing, but also changing and modulating the temperature. So if I have something that is I want to neutralize, but I want it to be on the warmer side of gray, then I'll use burnt umber. If I want it to be on the cooler side of gray, then I will use a raw umber. Um, you you can use those in contradictory ways too. You can use a raw umber to warm something up. If it's really on the blue side, it'll bring it more towards the yellow and the greenish side, and you can use the burnt umber with a blue to kind of to cool this down or warm it. It kind of neutralizes and changes neutralizes the temperature. So sometimes I'll mix a raw umber with a blue to get a really. You can mix it with an ultramarine blue to get really dark, rich black. Mix it with red to get these really nice, rich, warm reds. Anyway, I mean, I can go on for hours about that. All these reasons. But anyways, the whole idea is I don't have a million colors on my palette because then you have just way too many complicated choices to make. So if I have to do everything with this parameter, then it becomes very simple of what I need to do. So rather than having everything to choose from, I just create the things that I need to change the most, which are generally the temperature of something, some color, and the value of the color. And then for the full spectrum, I can mix this indigo blue with this yellow ochre or Naples yellow to get kind of a yellowish color. I can mix the Aliziran Crimson and the I mean, to mix these two to get a greenish color, and I can mix what was I gonna say? So I don't have a green in my palette. I don't really have really bright blues, but so if I need something like really bright blue, I would suggest like a cobalt blue probably be the go-to, or cerulean blue. All right. Anyway, enough talking. More painting. All right. I want to start with sort of this middle tone on his face, and it's just grab some of this cadmium red light. Now, it's really like a really hot orangish color, so what we're going to need to really neutralize that a lot. And I'm going to start with a Payne's gray. Now that's going to be way too dark still. Well, it might work. I'm going to use just a lighter tone of gray right here. And so what that's done though is it appears to have made it a lot cooler because when you mix something in with this cadmium red light that isn't some other hot color, it's going to tend to make it look cooler. So one way we can warm that up a little bit without adding a lot of cadmium red light is just to grab some of this yellow ochre. That won't change the tone of the color or the value of the color as much, but it will warm it up, bring it up to the yellow side versus the bluer side of gray. And then I'm just going to lay this in here, and it's going to mix in with some of this undertone that we have. And I'm going to follow structures on his face. Use a bigger brush as you can possibly get away with. As we go through it, I'm going to see if this is a little warmer. Putting his clown nose in there. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, and then as it gets down in this part of his face, there's more sort of local color. There's some more greens in there. But what I'm going to use for that is this raw umber. So it's going to get grayer and a little darker. And it may look kind of weird right now, like maybe purpley, but I'm just going to lay it in there. The shape of his face. I'm going to see. Give me a second to think here what I want to do here. Okay, I'm going to go under his eyes too a little bit. So part of this is getting this painting covered. Getting the whole canvas covered. It's not super critical which way, like if some of these colors are not quite on You know, you might take time to make a real slight adjustment, but don't waste a lot of time on it. I mean, I guess you can, but I'm not going to. I guess that's what I mean. I'm gonna bring in some of this burnt sienna. That ought to warm this up. And this is transparent, so it's not gonna like, it's gonna tint the color more than it is anything else. All right. And these brush strokes are describing the way his skull kind of moves around. Like, so I'm really, you think of it as a sculpture rather than a painting. I'm describing all these edges and stuff. All right, hold on 1 second. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to continue with these grayer and grayer tones to lighten it up. I'm going to bring in some Naples yellow, see what that does here. One more, and describe cheek right there. And it's a little warmer on the cheek. This one coming down his face right here. Okay. I'll get a little smaller of a brush to noodle in some of this stuff over here. Around his eye. Some light looks like it's reflecting back up in there. Just kind of get his eyebrow back in there. There we go. And I'm going to drop in his, I'm going to use a little bit of Indigo Blue, I think. Oops. That's pretty thin mixture I have there, and it's so thin that it actually wipes out the paint from the pillow. I don't want that dark necessarily. The paint's too thin. All right, so that'll be kind of where his eye is. Go over here and paint his other eye. It's like I have one eye above the other somehow. So I'm gonna just make sure, kind of start getting things correct. This is the point that's easiest to just push things around that aren't working until they're in the right spot. Because if you, nothing's more aggravating than spending a lot of time painting in some sort of detail or rendering the eye, and then you sit back and look at it and you realize that you have it in the wrong position, which means that you either have to repaint the eye or you have to repaint the rest of the face to match the mistake of the eye. So that's why it can be good to get those mistakes done right here before you have like a lot of time committed. So I don't want to start committing a lot of time into the certain area of the painting until I know that it's in the correct location. All right, so let's go into the light side of his face. And I'm gonna keep that a little, I'm I'm going to try mixing a greener color with this. I don't know if this is going to work. If it doesn't, I have an idea. But we can start laying in some tones. So, a lot of the keys to making flesh tones, and really, I found that even in landscape painting, um, is use of your neutrals and the temperature of those neutrals. So, getting good at gray tones is basically what I'm saying, I guess. Those are what really start making things not look cartoonish or illustrative. Like, the better you can get it, they look like more natural tones. Um, so that's what a lot of what I'm aiming at when I'm thinking about how to mix what colors to use. I'm looking at like what gray tones are there here. I'm gonna get a bigger brush because I'm already paying too much attention to small. You end up making when you smaller brush, you make smaller marks and small marks. And it takes, short stories. It takes longer to get through it. So like you can't really make any secondary judgments until the entire canvas is covered or you have something going on. You have to have everything works together in a painting. So you don't know if it works together until everything has got something like a placeholder. So like almost it's best just to make wild guesses going through the beginning of a painting. You'd be surprised at how often those turn out to be good ideas. Ironically, the more you paint, the more you think you know, and then the more contrived things get because you're trying to use what you know. So just trust in your gut. All right. I think it was more to the yellow ochre on that. That'll. Maybe work. I don't know. And still just mixing in some of this warmer. I'm warming up this color that I used for the shadow to kind of go around his eye, shadows around his eye, and then I'll just pick up some of those similar colors over to more of the cooler grayer side. So in the scene, there's like natural daylight hitting him and it's lighting up this part of his face. So use a lot of warmer tones right there around the under the eyelid stuff. All right, and then like in this color where he's got this crease in his cheek next to his nose. All right, let's go back. Start bringing in some of these tones. I'm just going to start with some of these grays in here. Going to pull on some, maybe burn number is the way to go. So I'm pulling in this yellow ochre, which will read kind of greenish compared to these oranges. I mean, it'll read on that cool tone, which is what I was wanting right there. Then let's get up under his nose a little bit. It's a little bit of a lighter tone right there. That's maybe too gray. I don't know. There needs to be lighter right there. All right. I go up under his. Let me think here. Okay. It's just not the right color. So we're gonna have to start figuring out his mouth here. Gonna do that in a kind of crook of his mouth. Warmer just on the edge right there, but the sunlight will be coming across this way. Let's put some gray in. That might work. All right, so now his lip is catching some light. So I'm seeing a highlight, but I'm going to avoid painting that highlight. So I'm going to go a little bit darker tone in here. And we'll come back and hit the highlight a little bit. And then there's a warmer tone under here. That part of his muscle under his lip. And then there's light on the top part of that part of his lip. The top part of his bottom lip is what's catching light here. And then there is some reflected light over here on that part of his musculature of his mouth. I'm just going to take some variation of this raw umber, burn umber, and the shadow right there. Catch the shadow from his nostril. His other nostril's closer to sunlight, and so that side of his nose is getting hit with light. It's going to be really warm, a really warm tone under there. I just go a lot more Aliziran Crimson. All right. There's going to be a little bit of warm tone along that snot gutter right there. We go to a little bit of a smaller brush and just kind of nail in his top lip a little bit. I'm going to take some raw umber. I'm going to get some Aliziran Crimson. And it looks like there's a dark part under it. Like there's usually something dark right where the mouth crease is. And then there's a couple of shapes that you want to get. And mainly the focus is getting the right shapes of where his lips would meet, like that, those creases right there. You know, that. So I'm kind of drawing things in here a little bit, just with indications. Like, you don't have to define every single line relationship in a painting. Um, Sometimes you can just put a few little markers, and we don't see the lines around everything all the time. So the more you put that kind of detail everywhere, the viewer's eye is not going to know where to focus as easily. So it's okay to blend, let things obscure themselves. Our our minds will tend to place things where we know things should be. Like I don't have to define that entire nostril for someone to understand that's the nostril. But to make it look right with simple brush strokes, you have to have them very simple and in exactly the right spot. Otherwise, it does look unfinished. So that can be the trick sometimes, is trying to figure out exactly what kind of brushstroke it needs to be placed in a certain spot. And so the trick to figuring that out is you have to get really fine-tuned to learning how to see what you're looking at simply. So you look at it and you break it down um, into very simple components, like what is like what do I need? Like I just need a little stroke right here and right there. Sometimes that's all it needs. I don't think that's the right one right there, but when you kind of get into the groove of a painting, that's what happens. It's just like you see it and it's obvious and it goes right down where it's supposed to. Let's move over to his ear. I think I got, well, let me close off his chin right here. Just mix some color. I don't think it would be a little on the gray side, maybe. This brush is getting screwed up. All right, I'm going to go to, I'm going to mix a little darker tone, this burnt sienna, to get under here with under his chin. Use this bigger brush to block in his neck. That is too light and too warm. Gonna gray it down with this Payne's gray. I'm gonna take it down. There we go. Gonna warm up a little bit with this burnt sienna. All right, let's go into his, put in some base tones in where his ear is going to be. Again, his ear is close to that sunlight, so let's knock that up. Let me get a different, I have to get a different brush here. That one's going to get beat up. I'm not very kind to my brushes. Maybe I'll work on that. Block, filling in that shadow part of his ear. I'm gonna go over to the yellow ochre and the Naples yellow mixture. Gonna keep it a little darker. Let's give me a second to think here. Bring in some raw umber, yellow ochre. That ought to be a nice sort of yellowish gray color. That will work. Yeah, there we go. So that works well with what I already have on his cheek over here. I'm going to bring that down here. And then I can mix a color with just more of the yellow ochre and Naples yellow to move away from that gray. Like that. And then I'm going to take my Cadmium Red LIght, or you could use this burnt sienna to warm up a bit. So I have the grayer tone, the lighter tone, and then this warm tone where it transitions. Over here. Use this tone to sort of block in some of these other tones right here in his neck. So I'm using a sort of grayer color as the highlight for now. Anyway. I can make that a little more yellow, I think. And I can take sort of a darker version of that tone, just kind of hit some things on his chin, which is sort of soft. Kind of like that. Then we can come back to hit that light on that lip over here. All right, back to his ear. Kind of skipped around a bit there. Just kind of lay some tone in there. It doesn't matter too much, and usually you just it's weird if you just take an kind of like you got to take your guesses a little extreme. Like if you think it needs a little red, it probably needs a little more. So I'm hitting this really warm tone under his earlobe, which is going to have a lot of light being cut on it. All right, let's do something about his hair. I'm going to start out with a raw umber tone. Actually, I'm going to mix all three of these colors together. There's going to be some of the same sort of ideas, temperature changes over here. So this is a good opportunity to simultaneously kind of correct the shape of his face. And then I'm going to bring some of this out here. And we're going to do the same thing with his hair when we paint the background in real quick. So you don't have to worry about getting this relationship too perfect. Just kind of generalize it in. Do that. I'm going to bring this color under his chin actually too. use this color for his eyes. All right. So this part is more light, so we're gonna move over to the raw umber tones for that. I might move into some raw sienna or burnt sienna to warm that up quite a bit. Like, and I'm just knocking this in as a shape here for now. Looks like his bald head kind of there's a his head gets his hairline goes behind a little waft of hair right here. So we want that to look sort of like transparent hair at some point. We don't have to worry about that yet. All right, I'm gonna bring in some yellow ochre to lighten up some of these tones on top here. Um, all right, let's keep it a moving. Let's see, I'm actually going to push this hairline a little bit more. So the hairline not only shapes his head, but his head has a shape that's defined by his hairline. And his hair has to go around the skull like everything else. So actually, I might do it like that. Looks like I need to kind of expand the top of his head a bit. Is that going to make that work? I don't know. I'm going to need to do the same on the other side. Let me actually just finish painting in part of his face over here. I'm not too worried about the likeness yet. I see that I have things mostly in the right spot, so I'm not. I don't, it's like it's kind of looking like him a bit. I know a lot of it's just then fidgeting with things in the painting to make it work. All right, so I think that might work. Let's just keep scribbling some of this in. So it's a good idea to step back and look at the painting because you got to see it as how it's working as the whole thing together. I think I was having some of the things in, they're not quite pushed the way they need to be pushed. So, let's see. Let's say, I'm gonna bring his chin down a little bit. Or his jawline, his chin is probably in the right spot. Got a square face. That's a little too extreme. Let's work it in there. All right, I'm gonna mix a background color together, and I'm going to use this Portland Gray Light and Naples Yellow. Let's just see. That seems like a nice bright daylight background. Is it too bright? Maybe. So we can bring that intensity down just by adding a darker color of gray, some raw umber, and there we go. Kind of starts feeling correct. Now we're going to use this to define his hairline. All right, bring it all the way down. Put a little more yellow ochre into that. Use some pretty thick paint over here. Keep defining that. All right, I'm going to knock in some tones on his jacket really quick. We're just going to use this raw umber, yellow ochre. Ta-da! Jacket. Maybe similar tone over here. It's going to be a little lighter, so mix a lighter tone of that. Grade up a bit. This looks so yellow. All right. Then he's got some light. Gone a little nuts with it over here. All right. And he's got like a shirt on. He's going to pick up some of this gray. I might read as a white shirt right there. Close enough. I'm gonna put some raw umber in that. More raw umber. It's a little darker. Actually, I might just go with a darker gray right there. Again, we're just putting placeholders in here. At this point, I continue as shirt collar. That's gonna get some white up here. And there's going to be a cast shadow from his shirt collar onto his neck. Let's do something fun with his eyes so it just looks a little more like something before we stop for the day. So I hope you guys had fun watching this. It's kind of fun to paint. It was like kind of quick and dirty Bill Murray. Quick and dirty Bill Murray. That makes him look kind of like puppy dog. Yeah, all right. Oh, yeah, let me hit a little bit of light on his nose here, I think. Okay, he's got some cool things going on in his face. All right. There we go. Kind of got something done today. Paint is too wet on the canvas to do too much more. Gotta wait for it to dry. So there we are. Step one, Bill Murray. Quick and dirty Bill Murray. I will work on completing some of these portraits and start uploading those or posting them shortly. All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by on my Friday paint session. I would do it every Friday at 3 o'clock, or try to. So check back next week. I often will ask for suggestions on the Friday morning. I think I might do that a little bit earlier, so I have more time to like get reference together. So if you have suggestions, you can leave it on any of the past ones that I've done. I look at those too. Until next week, have a good one. Hope you guys stay safe. Bye.